Karen Whitmore nearly choked on her morning latte when she spotted the American flag hanging from Captain James Morrison's front porch, upside down. Her manicured fingers trembled as she speed-dialed the HOA emergency hotline she'd installed last month. "This is a COD red violation," she shrieked into her phone, completely missing the subtle distress signal the veteran was sending to his Army Reserve unit. 20 minutes later, she was pounding on Morrison's door with such fury that Mrs. Chen from next door peeked through her curtains, wondering if someone was being murdered. When Morrison answered, still in his bathrobe because he'd just returned from a 48-hour training exercise, Karen thrust a neon-pink violation notice into his chest so hard he stumbled backward. "Karen, what the hell? That's William and Whitmore to you, soldier boy," she snapped, her perfectly styled blonde bob quivering with indignation. "Your flag display is in direct violation of Sunset Meadows HOA Code 15.73. Subsection B. Fix it immediately or face immediate foreclosure proceedings." Morrison blinked slowly, processing her words through sleep-deprived confusion. "Did you just threaten to take my house because my flag is upside down?" "I don't make threats, I make promises," Karen declared, her voice carrying across the entire cul-de-sac. "This community has standards, and I will not allow some weekend warrior to drag down our property values with his military theatrics." The moment those words left her mouth, something shifted in Morrison's expression. The exhausted confusion evaporated, replaced by the steely calm of someone who'd faced actual combat. "Ma'am, I suggest you educate yourself about flag protocol before you continue." But Karen was already marching away, her heels clicking like gunfire on the sidewalk. She had bigger plans brewing. By noon, she'd called an emergency HOA board meeting, completely bypassing the required 48-hour notice period. The community center buzzed with confused residents who'd received Karen's urgent texts about a national security threat in their neighborhood. "Ladies and gentlemen," Karen announced, standing behind the podium like a general addressing troops, "we have a rogue homeowner who refuses to comply with our sacred covenants. Captain Morrison has declared war on our community standards." Ward member Tom Rodriguez raised his hand tentatively. "Karen, isn't this a bit extreme? It's just a flag positioning issue." "Just a flag?" Karen's voice hit a pitch that made several dogs in the neighborhood start howling. "Today it's an upside-down flag. Tomorrow he'll be parking tanks in his driveway and conducting military exercises in the community garden." The room fell silent except for the sound of old Mrs. Patterson's hearing aid feedback. "I'm calling for an immediate vote," Karen continued, her eyes gleaming with zealous determination. "All in favor of initiating foreclosure proceedings against James Morrison for willful and flagrant violation of community standards." 3 hands, slowly raised, Karen's cronies who feared her wrath more than they valued common sense. Motion carried. Karen slammed her gavel so hard it cracked. "Mr. Morrison has 72 hours to comply or face legal action." What Karen didn't know was that Morrison's upside-down flag had already served its purpose. His Army Reserve unit had received the distress signal loud and clear, and Sergeant First Class Maria Santos was already making phone calls to her network of veteran homeowners throughout the county. The war Karen thought she was winning had only just begun. Karen woke up the next morning to find 17 American flags lining Morrison's street, all hanging upside down. Her perfectly manicured lawn suddenly looked like ground zero of a peaceful rebellion, and her Ring doorbell had been buzzing nonstop since 5 a.m. with delivery trucks bringing more flagpoles. "What in the Sam Hill is going on out there?" she muttered, throwing on her pink velour tracksuit and stomping outside. That's when she met Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, a compact woman with kind eyes and the bearing of someone who'd survived 3 tours in Afghanistan. Santos was directing traffic as more veterans arrived, each carrying folding chairs and coolers like they were setting up for the world's most patriotic block party. "Excuse me," Karen shrieked, her voice cutting through the organized chaos. "This is private property. You're all trespassing." Santos turned slowly, her smile never wavering. "Ma'am, we're on public streets and sidewalks, just exercising our First Amendment rights," same as you did yesterday at your little meeting. Karen's face flushed crimson. You weren't at the meeting. No, but Tom Rodriguez was, Santos replied calmly. Turns out he's married to my cousin Elena. Small world, right? The revelation hit Karen like ice water. Her secret weapon, surprise, had been compromised from the start. She watched in growing horror as more veterans arrived, transforming her pristine neighborhood into what looked like a military family reunion. This is harassment, she sputtered, pulling out her phone to call the police. Sergeant Williams, Metro PD, announced a tall black man in civilian clothes, extending his hand to Santos. Heard you folks might need some community support. Karen's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the sidewalk. Even the police were against her. By afternoon, the situation had escalated beyond Karen's worst nightmares. Someone had set up a grilling station, filling the air with the smell of burgers and hot dogs. Children were playing soccer in the street while their veteran parents shared stories and laughter. It was everything Karen despised: chaos, community, and complete disregard for her authority. This ends now, she screamed, marching toward Morrison's house with her final trump card, the foreclosure papers she'd somehow fast-tracked through her lawyer brother-in-law. Morrison met her at his front gate, flanked by Santos and a dozen other veterans. For the first time since this began, Karen felt a flicker of uncertainty. Captain Morrison, she announced formally, you have failed to comply with HOA regulations. These papers begin immediate foreclosure proceedings on your property. Morrison took the papers without flinching. Karen, do you know what an upside-down flag means? It means you're a troublemaker who doesn't respect. It's a distress signal, Santos interrupted gently. It means someone needs help. The words hung in the air like smoke from the grills. Karen looked around at the sea of faces, not angry, not hostile, but disappointed. She saw Tom Rodriguez shaking his head sadly, Mrs. Chen watching from her window with obvious disapproval, and even her own supporters from yesterday avoiding eye contact. I was asking for help, Morrison said quietly, and instead of checking on a neighbor, you declared war. For one brief moment, Karen felt something crack inside her chest, a hairline fracture in the armor of righteous indignation she'd worn for so long. But the moment passed, crushed under the weight of her pride. Help with what? She demanded, her voice smaller now, but still defiant. Morrison exchanged glances with Santos, then looked back at Karen with something that might have been pity. That's not really your concern anymore, is it? You made your choice. As the sun set over Sunset Meadows, Karen stood alone on her perfect lawn, watching her neighbors share meals and stories with people who'd answered a call for help she'd been too blind to see. The foreclosure papers in Morrison's pocket were real, but Karen was beginning to suspect she'd won a battle she was destined to lose. What she didn't know was that Morrison's unit had been planning something far more elaborate than a neighborhood barbecue. And tomorrow, Karen would discover that some wars have consequences that extend far beyond property lines.